And welcome back to Football Game Plan's Fantasy Football Draft Special. I'm Emory Huntazar, the Playbook, joined by Football Game Plan analyst Cornell Hunter. And now we're talking about busts. We're going to talk about the bust of the fantasy football season. We're going to do it interestingly. We're going to use a whole starting roster as your bust list, and then we're going to get some more busts. So let's start with your starting team of busts. And when we say bust, we're talking about guys that we're not saying the player is bad, but the situation is bad. So yes, you may have a great player in a bad situation. That warrants the term bust for fantasy purposes only. So let's talk about your starting roster of busts. Who's your quarterback?
Well, my quarterback, I'm going to go with Joe Flacco. The reason being, they're a run-heavy team, and I'm just not that impressed with their receiver position. I mean, Anquan Bolden is a veteran. He's reliable. He's a playmaker. But the Torrey Smith kid, I'm just not that impressed with, and a lot of people have high expectations for him going into his second year, and I just expect those expectations not to be met. So I'm picking Flacco just on the strength that I don't think he's working with the best receiving core, and you know when they get in the red zone, they're going to hand it to Ray Rice.
That's so true right there. Who's your starting running backs? You got two, but
yeah,
who's the first one?
My first one would be Frank Gore, and I love Frank Gore. Frank Gore is a powerful runner, one of my favorite running backs. But you have Brandon Jacobs, LaMichael James, and Kendall Hunter all in the same backfield. So this is not saying that Frank Gore isn't a quality player. He's just in a terrible situation in San Francisco. My other running back, also a guy I love, is D'Angelo Williams. But they brought in Tobin in the offseason. They also still have Jonathan Stewart. So if you take D'Angelo Williams high in your fantasy draft, you have to understand this guy's going to be splitting carries throughout the entire year. And Cam Newton is their most efficient red zone runner. So taking D'Angelo Williams, great back. If he was the only back, he'd run for 1,600 yards. But too many balls to go around. So D'Angelo Williams also makes my list as the bust pick for the running back. Now at the receiver position, I already hinted at Torrey Smith. I don't expect him to do the same thing coming into this year. And my other bust receiver I would have to go with is Miles Austin. Here's a guy who makes some electric plays every now and then. He had trouble staying healthy last year. And in my opinion, I believe Dez Bryant is the most electric receiver on that team. And you can look for Romo to look for him more often, as well as Jason Witten in that offense. So once again, I don't think Miles Austin is a terrible player, but there's just not enough balls to go around as far as some people have him high rated on their draft boards. I stay away from him until like maybe the middle, late draft because too many balls to go around.
Now you also look at the tight end position. Tight end position could be tough because it's such a feature position now in the NFL. Who's your bust on this list?
Well, this bust is just a continuation of what happened last year. I have to go with Mercedes Lewis in Jacksonville. The quarterback situation down there is terrible. I mean, here's a guy who 2 years ago had 10 touchdown receptions. Coming last year playing with that quarterback, 0 touchdown receptions. And I'm not saying that Henne can't do better, but it seems as if the front office is sold on Gabbert being the man. And if that's the case, then I expect Mercedes Lewis, as talented as he is, here's a guy, once again, who had 10 touchdowns 2 years ago, playing in a terrible situation. So Mercedes Lewis, I stay away from him because there are too many other guys that get the ball thrown to him consistently.
That's a heck of a bust offense. Who's your bust defense that you want people to stay away from?
My bust defense would be the Cowboys. DeMarcus Ware makes a lot of sacks on his own. He's a great individual player, but there are some holes in that Cowboys defense. I'm still waiting for them to cover people, and they're known, and they play in a very tough division. You have to understand they're saying Eli twice a year, Vic twice a year, and then you bring RG3 into that division. That's just a tough division. So I don't expect the Cowboys to have a dominant defense. Of course, I expect DeMarcus Ware to do what he does. But overall, as a defensive whole, I would stay away from the Cowboys with an early pick.
And they don't even have the special teams. I know they have Felix Jones as a kick returner, but their punt return game really lacks. And so you can really see why you went with the decision to stay away from the Dallas Cowboys. Now, kicking the football, who you want to stay away from as a kicker in this league?
Well, this is a team effort right here because I'm going to stay away from the Saints kicker. You don't even know who their kicker is going to be. Last year they had a guy, John Carney, come in, played very well.
John
Casey, but the kid Garrett Hartley had just signed a contract. So is the organization committed to him being there, or do they want to stay with the consistency that Casey showed last year? So I would just stay away from the Saints kicker situation because I don't even think they know who's going to be their kicker going into this year.
That's impressive. Now here's some other fantasy busts you want to avoid. By position, Matt Flynn is in a quarterback battle out there in Seattle. Blaine Gabbert will have to beat out Chad Henne. Ryan Fitzpatrick is struggling with inconsistency, plus they have a very good quarterback behind him in Vince Young. You look at the running back situation, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis isn't as explosive as you would like, plus they added receiving weapons, so they're probably going to be more pass dominated than anything. Ben Tate took advantage of last year's split carries with Arian Foster, but you look at Arian Foster coming back 100% healthy, his carries may drop. Pierre Thomas plays in that crowded Saints backfield, so you don't know who's going to get the carries from week to week. You look at the receiving position, Lance Moore, another one of those Saints wide receivers, you don't know who's going to get the ball week to week. Darius Hayward-Bay had a breakout year last year, but you wonder if he can do that again in back-to-back seasons. Stephen Hill is a rookie out of Georgia Tech. I'm not sold on his hands, so I don't think he's going to have a productive year for the Jets. Tight end position, Dennis Pitta splits time with Ed Dixon. Zach Miller may see his playing time decrease with the addition of Kellen Winslow, a better target. Kyle Rudolph plays with Christian Ponder, so there's your answer right there. Defensively, avoid the Detroit Lions, the Denver Broncos, and the St. Louis Rams, as all teams, in my opinion, have questions at the return game. They'll be solid, but they don't have the returns that can get you over the hump week to week. Now let's take a look at your all sleeper team of guys that you may find later on in the draft or down your board that could prove to be a huge success and asset to your team. Who's your sleeper quarterback?
My sleeper quarterback, and I made a big splash last year, I'm all about taking the talent. Forget what the naysayers say. Now when I look at Robert Griffin III, this is a quarterback who's faster than everybody else on the defense. He has ridiculous accuracy and pocket awareness, and he's one of those guys who we talk about who he isn't looking to run. As great as he is with his feet, he's looking to throw the ball, and if he runs, you're in trouble because you can't catch him. So this guy is a fantasy dream because of what he can do with his feet, and just passing wise, I mean, if you want to look at last year, he's light years ahead of Cam Newton as far as passing ability, and Cam Newton is a great passer. Yep. So I look for Robert Griffin to have a great rookie season.
That's impressive. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that situation. Your running back situation is pretty impressive. What are your two sleepers you have back here in the backfield?
My two sleepers, I have to go with Reggie Bush down in Miami. Here's a kid who was doubted and hated on by many. He gets 1 year in Miami. The coach gives him the ball, averages 5 yards a carry, makes some big plays in that offense, and he's looking forward to following that up with this season. He has some high expectations for himself, and we always say you can't beat having an electric player, a player that can score from anywhere. So Bush is a guy that doesn't need that many touches, but if he gets them, he's proven that he can get the yards and make the type of plays that can change a game.
And who's the other tailback you have?
Now this is a big sleeper. I'm going to go out on a limb. I expect Donald Brown of the Indianapolis to have a big year. I love Donald Brown. I liked him coming out of college. They have some stability at the quarterback position, and he made some big plays last year. This is a kid who has all the tools you look for. He hides behind the lineman. He's very sneaky with his agility, and he's decisive. He doesn't really pitter-patter around. He gets the yards, gets tough yards. I like what I see out of Donald Brown, and I really am encouraged by the fact that Adai is out of there. And now that opens it up for him to take over that running start.
And you look at the way they want to play football, 2 tight end sets, running football, he's going to have a great year. That's a good call right there. I actually agree with you after making fun of you. Who's your receivers on this sleeper team?
This almost hurts me to say that Randy Moss is a sleeper. Right. But in San Francisco, Crabtree, the tight ends, they have Jenkins that they drafted, they have Delaney Walker. That San Francisco offense is loaded, and if Randy Moss is the king, he started to throw it up type passes. Exactly. So he's that guy, still 6'5", still can catch, still can jump. So if Alex Smith, when you're in trouble, drop back, throw it up to Randy, I'm banking that Randy Moss is going to make that San Francisco offense unstoppable.
That's a great call right there. He is still Randy Moss, like we talked about off camera. Who's the other receiver you have?
My other sleeper receiver, I have to go with a rookie. I'm going to go with Michael Floyd in Arizona, playing opposite of Larry Fitzgerald. This kid, when you put on his college tape, is ridiculous. He fights for the ball, same way, jumps up, attacks it, and after the catch, he's dangerous as well. And you know they can't double him because there's Fitzgerald on the other side. Exactly. So Michael Floyd is going to be looking at your team's second best corner one-on-one every game.
And he's essentially a good target. He could be a number 1 receiver going against number 2 corner. That's a mismatch waiting to happen. What about your tight end position? Who's your tight end sleeper?
Tight end, I'm going to stick with the Colts. I got to go with Kobe Fleener. This is a guy played with the number 1 pick in the draft throughout his college career. They were roommates at some point, if I'm not mistaken. And you know Luck in that offense, he's going to look for him. He's comfortable. This is the one guy that he knows, he trusts. He knows that Kobe Fleener is a reliable target. This guy has ridiculous hands. And I mean, he was well worth the 2nd-round pick. And being with Luck in that offense, I think that was a great pickup by the coach. I expect him to have big numbers because that's going to be their number 1 target.
And you're expecting big things out of the Colts I see this year. Who's your sleeper defense?
I got to go with the Bengals. The Bengals have talent all over that defense. And me and you talk about this defense all the time. You have Malaluga. They have great DNs. Michael Johnson. There's great corner. There's great secondary play. Just overall, and they still have a great coach. Right. I mean, the guy gets crapped on or talked about badly, but let's not forget that Marvin Lewis is a great defensive coach. That's how they ended up with so much talent on the defensive side of the ball. So I expect the Bengals to have a great season defensively.
And they were able to keep Mike Zimmer, the defensive coordinator, so defensively they're stout. And rarely do you see a defensive team with as much offensive weapons as they have. So who's the kicker on that team?
The kicker I went with as a bust kicker would be the kicker of the Jets. That would be Josh Brown. Here's a kid that didn't have any 50-plus makes last year, and he didn't have the highest percentage when he was kicking for field goals. So the Jets have an anemic offense. They get into the red zone or they get close to scoring, and they don't have a kicker who has a leg enough to attempt a longer field goal. So Josh Brown pretty much throws you in the water without a paddle.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy right there. Let's take a look at some. Here are some more sleepers you want to keep an eye on. By position, look at the quarterback position. Russell Wilson, I really think this guy is going to win a starting job out there, so you may want to take him later on in the rounds, and he will surprise some people this year. You look at Brandon Wheaton, he's going to be given every opportunity to make plays in the passing game, so you got to love that if you're a fantasy owner. Vince Young, I think, will eventually overtake Ryan Fitzpatrick as a starter, and he provides rushing and passing ability. CJ Spiller, explosive out of the backfield. Look for the Bills to try to feature him more so this year. Plus, he helps you out as a returner. Ryan Williams comes back from injury. You got to like that. He's going to get some carries, take some away from Beanie Wells. You might want to use this guy as a backup type of option. Jabba Best should be healthy this year, and he has that breakaway threat coming out of the backfield. Brandon LaFell with the Panthers should emerge as a solid number 2 target. Alshon Jeffrey, the rookie for Chicago, keep an eye on him. He's going to be able to take advantage of the coverage that Brandon Marshall draws. So look for this guy to have some huge numbers as a receiver. Jonathan Baldwin, same situation, has Bo on one side. You got to like him on the other side. Plus, he has very good hands. Lance Kendricks for the St. Louis Rams. Very athletic tight end, should be featured a lot more in this Jeff Fisher type of offense. Jeff King, solid player for the Cardinals. Keep an eye on him. He had some big plays last season. And Tony Scheffler, another one of those Lions playmakers, tight end position, does well around the red zone and does have some outstanding after the catch ability. Defense, Titans, Bills, and Chargers, I think all defenses will be improved this year. Plus, they each have very solid returners on each one of those ball clubs. And welcome back to Football Game Plan's Fantasy Football Special. Emory Hunter's Art Playbook alongside Cornell Hunter. And we're tapped out, guys. We gave you a lot of valuable information for your fantasy football draft. We gave you busts, we gave you starters, we gave you sleepers, we gave you value picks. We gave you a lot of information in this show, and we also want you to check out many of our fantasy football videos throughout the course of the season, as we're going to put these things up on our website. That's YouTube, that's footballgameplan.com/fantasy. So for Cornell Hunter, I'm Emory Hunt. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys this season.